I'm Mimi Brooks, I'm the CEO of LDS, and we're a management consultancy, and we specialize in working with large organizations on their digital transformations, which is just about everybody these days. In some way or another, are in organizational digital transformation. And I want to kind of talk about some of the things that I think are lessons learned here, share some ideas of what I think kind of plagued us in the first wave of digital transformation, and then some ideas about how we think about organizational transformation going forward. So let me jump in. I just need to level set us on a couple of slides to align language and some concepts around what I mean when I say digital transformation. We all use slightly different language, so I'll level set on a few concepts, and then I'll talk about lessons learned, and then things that are needed, I think imperatives to be successful in transformation going forward. Digital transformation, the fourth industrial revolution, is what we're talking about. And whether you aspire to thinking about it as the fourth industrial revolution, or if you're in Europe and you might think about it as the continuation of the third industrial revolution, regardless, where we've been for the last 10 years, and believe it or not, it's been 10 to 12 years that digital has been redefining our businesses, our relationships to each other, and starting to redefine work and work itself. One of the things that we've learned is that in digital transformation, change is exponential. It's continuous, and the pace of change, while it's likely been fast and certainly seems fast for the past 10 years, it's likely to accelerate over the next 10 to 12, which is at an already dizzying pace, if you will, of transformation. But I think that this idea of digital transformation and what makes it so unique in this industrial revolution is this idea of digital and digital innovations are combinatorial and exponential. They build on each other, setting the pace higher and higher as we add new digital members, into our ecosystems, if you will. And it's not surprising that people would feel change fatigue even as early as we are into this digital transformation. So I just like the idea that, we can have basic concepts that explain otherwise frustrating situations. Why is it that things seem to be moving as fast as they do? Because digital is combinatorial and it's exponential and it's moving at Moore's law speed or faster depending on who you talk to. So how do we manage in those circumstances? How do we change our organizations, under those challenges? And that's what I want to talk to you about today. So 10 years into the fourth industrial revolution, what lessons have we learned? Can we see some of the patterns that have taken place over the last 10 years or so and describe them so that we can anticipate how to think about things ahead of us? So I like to break things down into pieces. And so if I look at digital transformation, I would say the first 10 to 12 years that we've been in is what I'm going to call the first wave of digital transformation. And it was driven by technology. You can call it digital disruption if you want to. You can call it too much technology, not enough business. You can call it digital transformation that we should have called organizational transformation. You can call it a lot of things, but the way you should observe it historically is that we bought a lot of digital. And organizations thought that if we acquired digital, we would become digital. Do you see what I mean? They thought that the mindsets and behaviors came with the technology, and that was a bad idea. Okay, that's why we're facing the second wave now of digital transformation, and I'm calling that organizational transformation. So now that we've purchased these digital capabilities, I'm sure we'll be purchasing more, but how can we change our mindset and think about this from an organizational perspective? Ultimately, wave 3 is permanently, forever changing the way our institutions work. I'll call that institutional innovation. One of the things that's interesting and not surprising about these waves of digital transformation is that even though they're roughly sequential, they really do work like waves. The wave crests, we're buying all this digital, we start seeing into the second wave and we realize we don't have people with us. We need cultural change. We need to engage people. In other words, the the sight of the next coming wave is evident when we're in the current wave and we see pieces of the future, but it's hard for us to understand exactly the relationship of that to where we are today. Okay, so they're non-sequential overlapping waves, but they're distinct nonetheless. Now we can have a conversation about lessons learned. So I want to talk about 5 lessons learned in the first wave of digital transformation, but I want to start by saying the language of digital transformation itself as a general concept did not help us. It really confused business people when they heard digital transformation and bought digital, and of course they thought they were doing the right thing. You know, it was bad nomenclature, you know, and it set a bad pace at business. It meant that business didn't need to own business transformation. IT could own it. Do you see what I mean? So it got assigned to the wrong organizations. Business got fractured, if you will, from technology. You know, we're buying all the shiny objects, and you hear business people talking about their cloud strategies. It made me want to cry, sincerely. Business people talking about their cloud strategies, about their social strategies, about their automation strategies, honestly, you know, without any real context about how the business was fundamentally changing in the marketplace, you know, to never go back, you know, to the business models that we had before. So with that as a backdrop, my first lesson learned is technology drove business strategy. And as a result of that, we couldn't get digital to move from the edge of our organizations into the core. Do you see what I mean? Digital on the edge, which is where we experimented, where we had projects of innovation, digital projects, sometimes hundreds of them. You should see the companies that we've worked with and the list of digital projects that they had, many of them having no way to be shut down if they weren't performing well, and no way to scale to the enterprise if they were promising. Do you see what I mean? So we kind of sunk in all of these digital projects in the absence of business strategy. First lesson learned. Second lesson is digital transformation inherently is a horizontal idea. Vertical is an anti-pattern in digital transformation. It's not that you and I don't like it. There's too many silos in this organization. No, it's a pattern, it's a structure that digital does not do well in, because digital is a horizontal idea. It seeks the enterprise common way of doing business differently. Do you see what I mean? And so our long instantiated vertical structures, which still are old, they're still push structures, command and control structures, top to bottom structures. Digital first companies are not organized like that. It's not a coincidence that they're not organized like that. They know that work doesn't get done in their companies when they use those types of models. Do you see what I mean? So our organizational structures, in the midst of all the change, you know, people go back to what they know and rely on. And if you're in a legacy business, that's a vertical idea. So we retreat to our vertical, you know, structures, and now we have digital happening in silos. In what silos? Organizational silos. No surprise here, organizational silos. But how are we becoming digital as an enterprise, one business unit, department function at a time? And those digital projects had nothing to do with each other. Not organized, not synthesized. There was not an enterprise common way of working. So lesson number 2, vertical structures compete with the horizontal patterns and structures that are required in order for digital to be operationalized within the business. While we were trying to buy and install digital, sometimes some companies, big companies, you know, incubated digital outside of the company. That was a hard model. You know, we wanted to move fast, so we took digital outside the business with the intention of bringing it back into the company. R&D, you know, really important R&D went outside the business, but we didn't have a good means, again, to fold it back in and make it enterprise scale. While all of this was going on, what we weren't doing was transforming our organizations. Organizational transformation equals digital transformation. We just didn't understand that the first time around. And what we needed to be doing as a first step was to decide, based on the business models that our organization needed to move towards, what were the organizational capabilities that would be needed in the future state? Did we need to understand how to transform our leaders to be more competent in running organizations, where people participate more heavily? Do you see what I mean? Did we need to change our decision-making structures? Did we need to encourage cross-functional teams to work together across business units that had no means of doing that? No incentive and no means to do it. In many cases, we work with companies where the business units themselves aren't even connected to each other. I can't even see into the business unit. I can't see their resources. I can't see their people. I can't see their ideas. I can't see anything. In the largest organizations, we have a client right now, within 250,000 people, you can find more about that business in the public domain than what you can find inside the organization. Stuttering. I could tell you stories that would just make your toes curl. People that, in order to move across the organization, retire or leave from one business unit in order to get hired by the other. Like stuttering ideas of how the enterprise, is not functioning as a single organization. And one basic idea is this concept of what organizational capabilities are needed in the future state. I do want to say I sat in on an interesting presentation prior, maybe 2 hours ago, and somebody was asking, how do we get business leaders to buy into projects of change? I thought it was an interesting discussion. And I would say, you've got to sell them on enterprise common. Business leaders have more common challenges today than they've ever had. They all struggle with readiness of the workforce. They all struggle with leadership readiness. They all struggle with how to change the decision-making patterns of people so that people rely more on data than on their own experience and intuition. They struggle with the same issues. But if you don't approach them like that, they'll feed it to you like their needs are entirely unique in their business unit. Do you see what I mean? And they're 90% not unique. 90% not unique. So our job, if you want to engage business leaders, is to find the enterprise common imperatives that they say yes to, that they must have, and they don't have time to solve those problems themselves. Anything else is gratuitous at a time where business leaders are just too busy. Early automation, while it was interesting, was really the low-end, obvious, simple task for us to automate. And what we didn't do was to take on the hard work of redesigning work. It really hasn't been taken on reliably even now. It's one of the biggest things that we're going to find in the second wave of digital transformation is if you're near an OD function, organization design, or people that are, those are people that you need to partner with going forward, because someone's got to redesign all of this work and all of the work practices that people use in order to create the human-machine relationship that's going to be the basis of our really important automation going forward. Finally, leaders needed more help with methodologies of change that they didn't have. And this also, dragged out this idea of change sitting with the CIO organization. Business leaders didn't know how to step in. They didn't have methodologies. People that were offering change strategies to them were bottom feeding on change. So a lot of change management organizations were not providing the insights to business strategy that business leaders needed. And as a result, God bless you, and as a result, business leaders didn't have the support that they needed in order to really institute sustainable change within the organization. So here's my list of 5 in summary. Digital transformation is less about buying digital and more about becoming digital. Long instantiated silos and push models need to give way to horizontal and pull models. I feel like people are taking pictures and I'm in your way. I'm going to get out of your way. New organizational capabilities are needed in order to accelerate the business model. I mean, if you want the CEO to pay attention, accelerate his or her business model. That's what they need. They need strategies of acceleration, people engagement, and change that accelerates the realization of business strategy. Where do I sign up? Like, I'm down on that all day, as most executives frankly are. Early automation attracted attention. I know some companies that were automating everything. Oh my God, I can't even tell you the kind of things they were trying to automate. But human-machine work and the redesign of human-machine work and anticipating what happens when people take their hands off the wheel and then they need to put their hands back on the wheel. Those are going to be their hard problems to solve from a design perspective, and the question is who's going to do it. And then finally, leaders needed better methodology. So as we go into the second wave, what do we need to do? Well, the first thing is we need to all say whatever your version of organizational transformation is. It's an organizational transformation problem. People need to be moved and readied for our future state. We need to provide meaningful employment to people. Digital transformation should make work safer, faster. You know, it should work well for humanity if we do it well. It should leave the environment in a reasonable shape, et cetera, et cetera. The question is, how do we make those decisions? That's why people like Elon Musk will tell you these are ethical decisions that come along with AI, you know, and digital decisions we need to make in the future. And that's a fair point of view. So the first thing that we need to realize is that businesses are not going to be in standalone vertical markets. It's already changing. Look at the strategy of mobility, companies that are going after solving mobility issues. We're going to be living in business digital ecosystems. Business digital ecosystems are open, not closed. They're horizontal, not vertical. And they have porous walls that operate in and outside the business. So right off the bat, if you're solving problems for your company, you need to think about operating in a business ecosystem. That's a fundamental idea. We change from a vertical mindset, and if you think about old business models, they were vertical, closed structures, and they made money based on models of scarcity. If you look at where business ecosystems are going, they're horizontal pool structures, and they're based on models of abundance. Look at Lyft, look at Airbnb, look at anybody, you know, all open platforms from high-tech companies that invite collaborators to come into their business model because that's how they're going to have the knowledge that they need to be competitive in the future. So right off the bat, that's a basic idea. The worker becomes central going forward the same way that your consumers were central to business models in the first wave. Customer centricity, customers in the middle, we all heard it, we all saw the business models that did that, but inside the enterprise, we didn't do the same thing with our workers. We didn't say workers in the middle. We didn't say worker centricity. We didn't say workers in the middle of our new work models, and we should have. Because at the end of the day, it's not going to be automation that determines how competitive our businesses are. It's going to be digital automation, smart solutions, plus humans as our differentiator. Humans that can make those systems deliver value in our new organizations. So new work practices are the things that we're going to be redesigning in the next 10 years. When we do that, not only do we have people start to embrace their relationships, their partnerships with their digital counterparts. If things were working well, people would be chasing it. They would be chasing it today. What can I stop doing and give to a machine so that I can move on and make the decisions that are impactful, that are sustainable, that make a difference in terms of how the company, you know, is successful in the marketplace. We need to change cultures like that. Instead of having people afraid of that, you know, we have to have people motivated to find those digital solutions that enable them to do the most human work that we can't automate. We're far away from that, I think, admittedly, today. If we could get humans and machines in play, now as an organization, we can compete on multiple timescales. This is what digital native companies do. This is why they're going to kill legacy businesses if legacy businesses don't figure out how to do that. And that is to play the combination of machine learning and human learning, you know, as we balance fast-moving forces with slow-moving forces that are never going to go away. Even though fast-moving forces are a phenomena of digital transformation, so are slow-moving forces. What do I mean? Geopolitical issues, social issues, environmental issues, the things that you don't accelerate, the things we don't expect, the things that happen unexpectedly that we need to deal with. And the combination of slow-moving forces and fast-moving forces equals digital-first organizations. This is what digital-first companies know how to do well. Learn at the pace of algorithms and learn at the human pace at the same time. Do you see what I mean? When people say we need to become a learning organization, you shouldn't think that they mean that people should learn faster. That's like a silly idea. You know what I mean? And then people get all stressed. You want me to learn faster? Like, what's learn faster? No, I want you to learn smarter. I want you to learn in combination with our other learning models, which are machine-based, in order to do the human-based model optimally. If the wrong work goes to the wrong side of that model, we tip the scale in some weird way. Do you see what I mean? That's what a learning organization means. Finally, we need to stop talking about capturing knowledge. That's a bad idea. Capturing knowledge, holding knowledge, these proprietary knowledge stocks, are something that goes away when we move away from these push business models. And we think about knowledge flows. It's not how much we can hide our knowledge. See, it even sounds weird when you say it. It's not how much we can hide and protect our knowledge. It's how much we can accelerate our knowledge flows, and how the value of the knowledge flows that we have and build contribute to our market competitiveness. You see what I'm saying? That's going to be a knowledge flow inside the organization, which is why vertical structures are an anti-pattern to the businesses in the future, but it also is going to flow in and outside of the organization. We're going to look all over the place for good ideas, and we're not going to care where they come from. I don't have to own them all. I just have to know them so I can do something with it. New organizations are ecosystems driven by human value and purpose. If you want to be an optimist, then say that you'll make it a better, safer world as a result of better human work. The worker is central in these new models. Human workers will be comfortable. They'll even pursue their digital counterparts instead of ducking it and being afraid about it. And organizations will learn on multiple timescales in order to be competitive necessarily. And as a source of economic value, knowledge flows develop in and outside the organization, making knowledge sources obsolete. If we could see that we're entering this second wave, then we would see the little bit of the third wave cresting on the other side, and it would be this knowledge that we must change fundamentally the structures of our institutions. We can't buy innovation someplace else. We can't do R&D outside the organization. We can't fire everybody. There's a good one. Just so you know, I say that to CEOs. What do they say? You can't fire everybody. We've got to get our human assets, our human capital, to be our differentiations going forward. We do that by quickly readying them for a future state that is unavoidable. It's unavoidable. We should, as leaders, just swallow it, run towards it, because it's coming faster than any of us can run. And the more that we resist, the more that we dig in our heels, the more we put our workers at risk. It's a big price to pay, and we probably should be a little farther along than where we are in terms of transforming our workforce and having a set of durable skills, organizational capabilities needed in the future state, durable skills needed by all individuals, and the readiness then of our digital systems to make our people better, smarter, safer, more ready for the future state. That's what we should be looking for. Institutional organizational transformation is clearly ahead of us. It's going to be based on this idea of business ecosystems integrating with other big business ecosystems. We will solve our hardest problems with multiple companies in play, along with collaborative partnerships with government, with academia, with other social interests. That's how we're going to solve the hardest problems ahead, which is why you hear a lot of the discussions about business being in this precarious situation of balancing stakeholders, which is a growing group of constituents, with shareholders, and figuring out how we have winning business models that can do both of those things. We're going to have to say yes to both of those. We're going to have to say yes to all of our emerging constituents, which includes the safety and well-being of people, and we need to say yes to what used to be our competitors that in many cases are now going to be our collaborators. These are going to be interesting models to see. If I could start my career over again now, I would go figure out what organizational design looks like 20 years from now, because I think it's going to be fascinating. All right, that's all the time I have. I appreciate it. Thanks a lot.